Hi everyone, welcome to Death Row Stories for the second part of this episode about the 600 execution of Texas, or maybe that it will not take place tonight. We are May 14th, it's 5:30, and the state of Texas might kill tonight Edward Busby. I talked about his case in the first part of this episode, and I want you guys to live this evening with me. And even this day, it started with the press conference of the abolition movement this morning. I was covering it. I was the only journalist, by the way. And hear what was said about this case that can help you connect the dots and know a little bit more about it, especially if you haven't seen the first part of this episode.
This gentleman whose picture is on the poster board right there, if the Supreme Court doesn't stop it today, and I'm crossing my fingers, he will be the 600th person executed. And I don't know if you know any families that have had somebody executed. It is a traumatic experience that changes the family's life forever. Forever. I talked to my friend Lee Greenwood, whose son was executed in 2007. Every time she talks about him, she still gets tears in her eyes today, almost 20 years later? We are here because 600 is like a pretty disgusting thing to happen. We're also here because Edward Busby, an African-American man from Fort Worth, should not even be on death row. The Atkins versus Virginia case said that people, back then they used the word retarded. We don't use that anymore. We say people with intellectual disabilities cannot be executed. It's a violation of their Eighth Amendment right. Well, Mr. Busby is intellectually disabled. And recently, the judge in his court ordered a hearing to discuss that, to see, because he got a stay a couple of years ago when he had a date. The state of Texas presented an expert, and his attorneys presented experts. They both agreed he was intellectually disabled. And what did the judge do? There must be something wrong with him, because he said, well, it doesn't matter. I think he's fine. And not using any medical qualifications, he just said he's fine, and he set an execution date. Now, last Friday, the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans stopped the execution, but Texas appealed it to the Supreme Court. So we're sitting here waiting for the Supreme Court.
I don't believe in the death penalty, and not just because the state of Texas uses it against Black people more than they use it against anyone else. I don't think you teach people not to kill by killing people. That doesn't make any sense to me. I stand against this. I hope that the Supreme Court does not follow what Ken Paxton is asking for, which is for the stay to be lifted. But as of right now, and I checked right before I came up here, the United States Supreme Court has not lifted the stay. If the United States Supreme Court lifts the stay, then Texas will be able to execute Mr. Busby. I hope and I pray that that does not happen, because it violates the Constitution. And I pray for him, and I pray for his family.
There's a necessity in society for justice. Let us be clear. When we violate persons and property, then there has to be some measure of justice in order that behavior doesn't take place, because otherwise we have chaos in the society. But it must be justice for all, regardless of creed, class, or color. And the difference between justice and revenge is when you execute juveniles, as Texas has done, when you execute intellectually disabled people, as Texas is planning to do or has done in the past, hell, they even kill born-again Christians in this place. And persons who are actually innocent, they do kill them. So it is not justice, then it results in revenge. And there's some things you can't take back. Once you kill the person, in those categories, then it's not justice, it's revenge. And now you put yourself, in my humble opinion, and by study the scripture, you put yourself on the wrong side of God or supreme being. These people do not respect the Constitution, but they also don't respect the 10 Commandments that they decided to post in our school. And for those of us who do believe in spirituality, I don't have a problem with you wanting to maybe post the 10 Commandments in school if you would follow them. We have great sympathy and empathy for the victims of crime, those who lost. It's not that we don't care about the families of those who have lost their lives in these crimes, but all we know is that this system is rigged from the top to the bottom, from being over-policed to being over-prosecuted, to not be afforded the right kind of defense, and we find ourselves on death row or over-incarcerated because, unfortunately, that's the way the system is set up.
So we're waiting right now for a decision from the US Supreme Court. It might arrive late at night or any time now, actually. We have no idea. I'm the only journalist right now in this area. There are always a few journalists in the execution chamber witnesses the execution itself. There will be someone from the Dallas Morning News and someone from Associated Press. But right now, outside, I'm pretty much by myself. There's no bathroom for me, nothing. I'm just authorized to be here, waiting for that decision and maybe for this execution. So the Supreme Court just issued a ruling siding with Texas and vacating the appeals court's stay. So the execution should proceed. So it's 8 o'clock now. The witnesses are inside since half an hour. The media are inside too. And I have no other news. The US Supreme Court, I had the opportunity to read the ruling, didn't give any explanation about their decision. They just say that the execution had to proceed. So right now, I'm waiting for the witnesses and the media to get out of the Walls unit. Edward Busby had 2 witnesses, his sister and his spiritual advisor. So it's 8:20 now, and the witnesses left the Walls unit, the media too. So the execution of Edward Busby is over, and it was the 600th execution here in Texas since the end of the moratorium that took place in 1976. 2 professionals said that this man that was executed today was intellectual disabled, and it's forbidden in the United States to execute someone that is intellectually disabled. But the judge said that he didn't want to follow the conclusions of the experts, and one of the experts was appointed by the state of Texas. So that's kind of crazy, but the US Supreme Court said that that was okay and that the execution can be done. So I was just told by the head of the communication of TDCJ that nothing will be said about how this execution went through. So I don't have any more information. Thank you for following this video. I did a very interesting interview a few weeks ago about lethal injection and the secrets behind it. I really encourage you to listen to this interview.
We have seen autopsies with distended veins, and you can imagine the person inside is going even as they look very peaceful. In 84% of the time, the prisoner is dying because they are drowning on their own fluids. The average time of lethal injection for the one-drug protocol is around 18 minutes. Executioners tried and failed to access the vein for over 2 hours. The Department of Corrections investigated itself.
Okay.
And said, we're great. Arizona spent $1.5 million on drugs for 3 executions, and it botched all 3. Texas was found to be using drugs, I think they were 1,300 days old. These are drugs that expire, depending upon how they are being stored, within 40 days.
Thank you very much for following this video or this podcast, and please share.